Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transport Fever 2, one of my favorite games of all time, and probably the gold standard whenever it comes to economic simulators and logistics simulators. I absolutely love this game. I put in probably 400, 500 hours into it, and I think it's just like really cool to see how you can connect these cities and connect their industries. This is going to be my first time ever recording something and putting it out there. But I've watched so many other people do it that I thought it would be really cool to try it myself and show you a full playthrough of a map like this. I've rolled up the maps to kind of see what is available to me, and I've come up with something that I think is really cool. The first thing I really like about Transport Fever is that it's completely auto-generated, meaning that every time that you play this game, it's completely different from the last time. Now, you can try your best to kind of get similar maps over and over again, but overall, you will see a completely different map every time that you start a new save game. So the map I'm showing you now, and I'm going to be playing through in this series, is completely different than I've ever played before. Now, I've started with a dry climate, because that's a little bit of a medium difficulty. I've put medium town locations, medium industries on this, and medium demand. So by the end of this series, you'll see that each town wants 4 different things. So let's just take a look real quick at Detroit here and just see what it wants. So the basics of this game is that each of these towns wants stuff. In this case, Detroit wants fuel and it wants food. Your job is to supply Detroit with food and fuel. Once you get to a certain size, Detroit will expand and need more things. You will also have the ability to connect Detroit to other towns to increase its size, and then also connect Detroit with public transportation to other communities so that it grows as well. Those resources, such as, are dotted throughout the map. So for instance, right here you see crude oil, okay? So this is crude oil. You can take crude oil and turn it into something so that eventually you get fuel. So you take crude oil, you go and you find a oil refinery, you connect these two up, and then that crude oil will turn into oil. Once it's turned into oil, then you can turn it into different things. For instance, right next to it here, you have plastics. So you can turn oil into plastics. You can also turn oil into fuel, like up here, okay? And fuel's what Detroit needs. So the way I like to start my games is I like to try to find the cities that are the largest and that demand the most, okay? But before we get started, let me tell you what my 3 big goals are for this series. My first is to connect all the cities together in one major passenger rail system. I want a person to be able to sit in Salt Lake City and take a train all the way to the opposite side of the map and get back on the same train if they wanted, all the way down here to Mexico City. I want them to be able to ride that train all the way around, either way. So I'm going to set up that system. My second is I want to be able to provide each and every city with at least 2 of the 4 resources that it demands by the end of the series. And lastly, I want to use what's called a main line. And this is something I've never been able to do successfully, so I'm excited about it. I want a single rail train to be able to go between each and every city and collect and drop off every resource that each city needs. So what that means is there's going to be a train by the end of this game that goes to Detroit, drops off fuel, and drops off food. That same train will then move on to Hartford and drop off food and drop off machine parts. It will then transfer to Norfolk, where it will drop off tools and fuel. It'll keep doing that. And every station, it'll pick up more stuff and drop off other things. This is called a main line. It is a very complex logistics system, but something that I hope I can accomplish by the end of this series. So that's my 3 goals. Connect all the cities with a rail network that includes passengers and goods. Having that mainline system that runs throughout the entire map, and also provide each city with at least 2 of its goods. Okay? So whenever I start a map like this, I like to kind of scout around and see what are some easy connections that I can make, and what's some quick money that I can start making right away. You can see down here I have $10 million. That $10 million is in the form of a loan. So eventually I have to start paying that money back. I can also borrow more money if I want, okay? In addition, down here, we say it's January 2nd, 1900. If you wanted to, you could start this game as early as 1880, which gives you some more covered wagons and different horse-drawn carriages for transportation. But I decided to start in 1900 to get to those first steam engine-based vehicles. So I'm kind of looking around, and it's hard to see and understand everything that's going on because this is a huge map. So what I'm going to go down here, I'm going to go down here to my cities tab and figure out what are my biggest cities. Here are all my cities listed. Let's sort it by size. All right, Montreal is my biggest city. It's 251 people. Let's go find Montreal. Okay, we're going to pin that off to the side. All right, Montreal needs tools, and it needs construction materials. Okay, it actually needs quite a bit of each. So let's now look around Montreal and see if that's something easy that we can provide them. Right? Do I have anywhere that can give me construction materials? Here's stone right here, which is what I need to make construction materials. But I have nothing easy. Oh, here's my first one up here. Here's construction materials way up here. So I'd have to go all the way. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right, let's find tools. Tools. There are no tools. Okay, tools factory right here. So I can go wood to planks to tools. Yep, that's not going to work. Okay, so Montreal's out. We're not going to start with Montreal. All right, let's try our next biggest city. Portland. Let's go over to Portland. All right, Portland needs construction materials and bread. All right, so I got tools right there. Ooh, Portland's kind of like a little island over here, so that's going to be really difficult to do. All right, we're going to have to skip Portland. All right, let's move on to our next one. Mexico City. All right, Mexico City's got... Ooh, these are hard too. Trade goods and machine parts. Now, those are two very advanced materials that you need a lot of components to get to, so I don't think that one's going to work. And we're coming down our list, aren't we? All right, Chicago. Chicago needs fuel and goods. All right. All right, there's oil to start the fuel production. There's crude oil, but I got no processing plant. All right, next one. Ann Arbor, 205 people, machine parts and goods. All right, that's not looking good either. Okay, but here's something pretty easy. So steel here needs a lot of materials. It needs 2 iron and 2 coal, but they're relatively close together. Okay, so there's definitely a triangle here that could work. And also that steel is needed right down here to start producing goods. And those goods could go to Mexico City. They could also go to... Okay, so this is a good little area right here we can kind of start to think about focusing on. All right? But it's not an easy one. It's not an easy place to start. We've got limited funds. And if I know anything about this game, it's that you got to be able to make money early. You have to start establishing trade routes, goods routes right away, quickly. Okay? All right, Evansville. Evansville needs fuel and it needs tools. All right. Fuel and tools. All right, nothing easy. Okay, all right, let's try sorting this a different way. See if we can come up with something. I know that construction materials are an easy way to start. I also know that you can make planks and tools pretty easily, so we're going to sort this instead in that way. Okay, so we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 locations that need construction materials. Let's look at Mobile first. Mobile. Okay, so Mobile needs construction materials. Do I have a quarry nearby with stone that can make that. I do not. Okay. All right. So let's keep looking. Okay. Montreal, we already kind of looked at. Napersville needs food. It needs, okay. Here's a construction materials factory. If I can find the stone, that might be a good one, although that's a large distance to travel. Okay, so stone's down here. You know what I could do with this also? Here's, you click here, and you look at suppliers, and it will list off all the stone in the area. So Evansville is right up there. We got one over here. That's not bad. That's still really far off from what I want. Napersville. Okay, suppliers. Okay, that one's pretty, that's not close. Well, there's one right there. Okay, so, but the problem is that we have to cross this river, and that's just not possible this time. Okay, I think I did see something that I might want to pursue. Here's food. I'm sorry, here's grain to food there. Let's take a look at Salt Lake City, all the way at the far end here. Okay, and this is kind of what I'm talking about a little bit. So Salt Lake City is at 147. Salt Lake City demands fuel and it demands food. Okay. So luckily for Salt Lake City, they have a lot of the resources they need in order to get started. Okay. I have a crude oil here. I have fuel to oil transition there. And then I've got fuel here. And I've got demand for fuel at Salt Lake City. So I could create a pretty good transport system that feeds Salt Lake City with fuel. Now, it needs 49 fuel. That's a pretty hefty demand, and I think I like that system. I also can get Detroit with some fuel as well, which is great. Detroit also okay, so Detroit and Salt Lake City, this is good, actually. Detroit and Salt Lake City demand the same thing. It's food and fuel. So if I can feed both of these cities with both of those, I'll have a good start to my system. I have to find some grain, though, to turn into food. I've got food right here, a food processing plant. I need to find grain to feed that food market. So let's click there. Let's look at suppliers. Oh, wow, there's a lot of farms. Okay. Okay, there's a farm right here, the Mobile farm. I got a farm up here. Just need a farm somewhere up here, though. And of course, I got nothing. Okay, I got a farm over here. So I think my closest farm is going to be the Mobile farm right there, just north of Mobile. Yep, that's going to be the closest one. So here's what we're going to do to start. We're going to start by setting up this fuel, this crude to fuel to supply network up at Salt Lake City. And then we're going to try to start shipping that fuel down to Detroit, okay? Or actually what we might do is we'll set up fuel here, then we'll set up food to get to Detroit. Once we do that, we'll start swapping the products back and forth. Ah, there we go. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started on the actual, now that we're done with the overview, okay? So to play Transport Fever, it's all about building out those logistics networks. So we're going to start with trucks, because you got to start with trucks. It's the cheapest way to transport items. Okay, so you have to start by building these little distribution network systems at each location. When you get to a place, when it highlights like that, that means that depot, that branch location is now connected and can receive the crude from that location. Okay, we now need to get it to that. Now, trucks will take this road. Eventually, when I have enough money, I'll go ahead and build a simpler road across the desert there. But we're not going to worry about that right now. We just need to start making some money. I've got to pause right now, so we're not going anywhere. Sometimes you like to try and have it so your trucks don't have to go onto an outer road. Like, let's see how far we can. Okay, so there it is. Right about there is as far away from the fuel processing plant, the refinery, that I can go and successfully get capture. So since this is a drop-off and transfer to a new location, I'm going to make it a double so that trucks don't get in the way of each other whenever they're dropping off and picking up. All right, so we're going to go ahead and plop that right there. Okay, and then our last leg of our journey is going to be, sorry, the third or fourth of our journey here is going to be the fuel factory here. Okay, same thing here. We need to build a little depot here that allows for drop-off and transfer. I'm going to extend its length because we want to be able to store some fuel here to be transferred into the city. Okay, so we're going to go about there. Should notice how expensive that was. That was $211,000 of my $10 million. So that's a huge investment. I've spent about $450,000 right now just on 3 buildings. So, okay, now we need to establish this line and then put it into Salt Lake City. Now, in the city itself, you do not need one of these bigger drop-offs. All you need is you need a truck drop-off. So these truck drop-offs are essentially like a stand on the side of the road where your truck can pull up, unload everything so that people can use it, and then it drives off. So try and put this truck drop-off where it has the maximum capture for the city, but definitely so it captures the demand for fuel here. So I'm going to put it there because I want trucks to be able to come. Oh, do I? Yeah, I want trucks to be able to come back through here, drop off the fuel, and then head back and start the rotation again. All right, this is a pretty complex one to start. I mean, it's got 4 stops on it, but we're going to see if we can't maximize our return here, okay? Now, the next thing you need to consider, and once you play this game enough, you kind of start thinking about this pretty easily. For every 2 crude oil that are supplied here, you get 1 oil. So that means that this needs to supply twice as much crude to here for the same return out to fuel. Fuel is 1 oil to 1 fuel. So you just need a 1-to-1 ratio there, but you need a 2-to-1 from crude to oil. So I have to supply twice as many trucks from crude to oil as I do from oil to fuel, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to do 2 separate lines now. Let's start with just the basic one. All right, before we do that, we got to set up our little truck stop here. This building is the road depot. This road depot is where you buy your trucks. And you try to put your road depot somewhere easy so they can easily access lots of different locations. By the end of the game, you'll probably have a road depot per town, but they're expensive and they have maintenance costs. So I'm going to put it here. It's only $12,000 here. Okay, the flatter the terrain, the cheaper it's going to be. All right, so let's set up our first line. We're going to click this line button out in Line Manager. We're going to start a new line, and we're going to go from crude oil to oil refinery, and we're going to call that line number 1. That's just what we're going to do to start. Okay. All right. And I kind of have a code system that I like to use. I like to abbreviate Salt Lake City. This is Salt Lake City. And we're going to go crude to oil 1. All right. So that helps me decide, keep that line straight from other lines. Okay. All right. So we got that set up. Okay, let's manage the line. Let's change the color on this. Let's make it black. Yeah, let's make it black. Okay. All right. Now you've made the line. So these are essentially the instructions that you're going to give to your trucks. Okay. Now we need to buy the trucks. Okay. So I click on the depot. Buy vehicles. I want cargo vehicles, and we're going to go with the steam truck. because that's going to be the most advanced and fastest for this time period. We're going to start with 5 trucks. Okay, 5 trucks, and you're going to see why I'm only going to do 5 here in just a minute. Okay, it's going to cost me $237,000 for 5 trucks. Now we're going to put it on the line. Okay, now I've got the game paused. We're going to go ahead and unpause. And let's look at the trucks as they're coming out here. All right, those are my steam trucks. All right, these are pretty much the first versions of motorized vehicles that you can have in this game. Okay? All right, 5 trucks. They're going to head off, and they're going to do that route for me. Now, you can do lots of things. Part of the reason I like this game so much is you've got so many different camera angles and camera components that you can use to kind of really zone in and micromanage this game, your map. So I really enjoy it. So these trucks are going to go ahead and take that. We're going to speed up a little bit just so you can see the process here. Okay, so I'm going to pin this video up here just so I can kind of watch it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the route. All right, so you can see down here already at the Salt Lake City branch crude, we've already got 41 barrels of crude oil waiting for these trucks. Each one of these trucks can take 6. Okay, 6. So, per truck, I'm going to be producing 3 refined oil. Okay, so let's look at this first truck. Let's see him pick it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then he's going to go off and he's going to go to the refinery to drop it off. Then he's going to just come back and start the process over again. Right here is kind of an important number, $1,304. That's the maintenance cost for that truck in real time. So at this point, it's cost me $1,304 to maintain that single vehicle. Okay? Now, when he drops off that oil, at the refinery, he's going to be paid. And that money will, this number will change, most likely to positive. I could be wrong. It's already up to 1936, but let's go ahead and watch him as, man, he's got a long drive. Okay? So he's going to rock it up to this area here. That's why it's a good idea for me eventually to build a road all the way so it's a dead shot. But we're not there yet. Okay. He's going to drop it off at this location. It's going to be dumped off into the refinery. And then that refinery is going to turn it into oil. Okay. So you can kind of see this thing flashing right here. That's to indicate that it is ready to accept. If this isn't flashing for some reason, it's because your location isn't in the right capture or something's not hooked up properly. So later, whenever I get into some troubleshooting issues, that'll be probably the issue, is that something's not connected right, or maybe I picked the wrong type of trucks, or I set up something wrong. So here we come. He's almost there. Speed up a little bit. All right, and we'll zoom in here now and kind of take a look. All right. Okay, so he's about to drop off his 6 barrels. Boom. He got paid $9,581, which means he's now in the positive $5,668. As long as each one of those trucks is making that much money and is staying positive the entire time, I'm going to be a profitable company. Now let's look at the refinery here. The refinery has now consumed 12 barrels of crude oil and has turned nothing in yet. The reason it hasn't started producing anything yet is because nothing is yet demanding oil from it. So I have to set up another line that takes the oil from here and ships it to the fuel network. Okay? All right, so we're going to stop watching these vehicles. I'll show you kind of an overview of the finances at the end. But we know that the system's now working. All right, let's go ahead and set up the next kind of the second leg of this journey that's going to finish this loop. Okay, so let's go back to line manager, new line. We're going to go from the refinery to the fuel production plant. Thank you, autosave. Okay, and then after they drop off the oil and turn into fuel. I want them to stick around, gather the fuel up because it's a 1-to-1, and then take it to Salt Lake City. Drop it off for the people, and then restart the cycle. All right? So we got Salt Lake City. We're going to go oil to fuel to, and then whenever I supply a city with a good, I call it supply. Okay, there we go. All right. Now I've got 5 trucks doing that. I'm eventually going to increase that number to probably 15 or 20, honestly, for this route, which means I need half of that amount to do the second loop. So let's just start with, let's do 5. Okay, I'm going to do 5 for route 2, but I'm also going to do 5 more for that initial route. So let's do 10, $474,000. Okay, so I've just bought 10 trucks. They're all listed here. We're going to take 5 of those trucks, and we're going to go ahead and put it back on that first line to double our production. I'm then going to take the second 5, and I'm going to do that second route. You can actually see whenever you hover over the line, it'll tell you which line you're talking about. That's probably the easiest way to keep everything straight. So again, the second line is going to take it from oil to fuel, fuel to city, and then repeat the process. Boom. Let's do that. All right, so these trucks are now coming out. All the same truck. Everything's good so far. Okay. Let's go ahead. Manage Vehicles. Let's make all these trucks orange because that's an orange line. And actually, no, we're gonna turn this into a red line because we're creating fuel, and for some reason in my head, fuel is red. Okay, all right. So now we have a pretty robust, I think, system. Now, there is something that we need to kind of think about here, okay? So I've got you can actually access these lines pretty easily by just clicking on the depot that is near, okay? So this has both. So right now, at the oil refinery, fuel is being dropped off on platform 2 over here and then picked up as fuel on platform 1. Ah, there it is, okay? But we're going to switch those because that is a little bit backwards. So we're going to go that there. Okay, that's what we're going to do, okay? You can actually see now that there's 3 oil that's going to be picked up by that second line to take it to fuel. Okay, so there's one other thing that we want to do about this red line here to help make sure it's as efficient as possible. Okay, so it does take time. It does take time for this refinery to produce the oil from the crude. It takes, a few seconds per. I don't want these trucks to just drive off with 0 in the tank. That's not good. So I need to tell them to wait until they have something. So we're going to click on the line. We're going to manage the line. And then we've got some options here to expand that up. So at Salt Lake City East, which is where we're at, we're going to tell those trucks to wait until they're full. But they're only going to wait a maximum of 3 minutes before they leave anyway, because I don't want them just sitting there infinitely, okay? This is kind of a major component of this game is making sure that you don't have a single truck that is running empty. The moment it's running empty, you are spending money without making any money back, okay? Now, I know on my first line, this one here, this black line, they're going one way taking things, but coming back empty. That's not good. It's necessary for this system, but in a perfect scheme, I would want 0 trucks to ever be empty and driving. You want always your trucks to have something. The same thing with trains, same thing with everything. So when I look at this red line here, okay, in a perfect world, these 5 trucks are driving all the way up full to the fuel. They're cashing it in for 6 fuel. They're taking 6 fuel down to Salt Lake City, dropping it off, and then only this last leg of the journey, last leg, are they empty. Okay? And really, if I wanted to eventually, I could set up something to where they're picking something up, but we're not there yet. So my trucks are almost there. You can see they've got 3 oil. So we need to also go to Salt Lake City Annex, second location, and do the same thing there. We need to make sure full load, wait for the full load, only wait 3 minutes. Okay, we're actually going to change that to 2 minutes because I don't want them sitting there forever. Actually, let's make it 90 seconds. Okay. And then they're going to go on. Okay. Let's see how much money this makes. It's already 5,000 in the hole. So they're going to drop off this 3 oil. And they're going to pick up 3 fuel. Boom. $6,814. That means they're $919 in the black. It's picking up 3 fuel. 1, 2. And see, this is kind of a problem sometimes with this, is that it shortchanges you a little bit. So this truck is going to have to wait here until it's kind of told, oh yeah, you can't get any more. Okay, well, let's actually change this. Let's change this to an interval of 60 seconds. Okay, so now that truck's going to move on with 2 fuel and move on to the next thing. By the time that this system starts working appropriately, I will have these be 6 for 6 on everything. Okay, but that's just going to take some time. Oh yeah, that had 0. So now it's going to have 0. Okay, so now it's starting to work really well. Okay, I'm having more trucks now drop off the crude oil to turn into oil, so that every time one of those red trucks come up and want oil to turn into fuel, they're going to have a full load. Okay. One thing we're going to run into as an issue here, because the frequency is such, is that eventually this little platform here is going to fill up, and we don't want that, because the moment it fills up, it won't accept anymore. So we've got to make sure. So right now, it's now wasting it because it has too much. So we're going to go ahead and renovate it, and we're going to add some more platforms. Boom, there we go. Okay. There's some deeper logistical logistical tools that you can use to kind of figure out exactly what your truck ratio needs to be to make this perfect. What I'm seeing right now is that I don't have enough red trucks because the distance is so much further for the red trucks, so the ratio is off. So I need to buy more red trucks. Okay, so we're going to go to our red line. We're going to manage vehicles. And I'm just going to go ahead and do 3 more. So I'm going to click 3. I'm going to do this clone selected vehicles. Boom. Now I have 8 trucks doing that route to the 10 that are doing the black route. Okay. So this is my initial network here. This right here. It doesn't look that exciting yet, but it's working. It's working. Manage vehicles. We're going to turn all these vehicles black. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, there you go, truck. Okay, we've got 193 crude waiting here. I don't really worry too much about it being wasted at these initial feeder locations, because it's going to feed it indefinitely until it runs out. If you really want to get technical, it will produce up to 400 per kind of cycle. So I can have up to 400 be pulled from here before it starts to run out. But that's a little bit more technical than we need to be right now. Okay, you really get into that stuff when you get into trains and aircraft. So, all right. So these red trucks now, they have 6. They're picking up 6. Here are my 3 new trucks. that are kind of tooling around. And we've got our first successful network. Let's close this first segment by taking a look at the overall network and showing you the deeper financial statistics here. Okay. So here's my line statistics. This gives you every single network that I've built so far. Okay. And eventually this will be quite extensive. But right now we have just 2 lines. That crude to oil line 1 has 10 trucks on it, and it's making me $59,000 in profit right now. The red trucks, that oil to fuel supply, is making me, well, it was positive, about $1,700 to start, but now it's negative to negative $3,000. And this is in real time, okay? So this is a really good kind of menu to show you what the overall stats are for your current kind of balance. Okay, as long as more money is coming in than going out, you're going to be okay. All right. Another way you can kind of look at this is the overall financials. Okay, so here's my overall financials. It does not look good right now, but it will get better. So this road component here, this is how much money I'm making from my trucks so far. I don't have any railroads, water, or air traffic yet. I have invested $1.7 million. Yeah, about $1.7 million in infrastructure so far. I've paid about I'll pay about $100,000 a year in loan interest so far. I got to get that number down to 0. So in total, I've made a negative $355,000 in this quarter of the year. Okay, so financially not great at this point, but the hope is that as I develop a few more lines, I'll be able to negate the loan interest. If I can make more than $100,000 a year, then I'm going to be positive overall. And that's kind of the initial goal of the early game, because the investments only come into play when you're building things. So that's going to be the end of this initial episode. And we'll come back and take a look at what we're going to do next. Thanks so much.